Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the law of attraction, manifesting success stories show comes in. If you are ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and I am back with Jeanne Andrus, the Menopause Guru. I'm so excited. Welcome, Jeanne.
Hi, Cassie. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I'm fantastic. So as Jeanne just said, Merry Christmas, because we are recording this right before New Year's 2019, and this is going to be the start of Jeanne's 2019 Year of Growth series. So you've heard her throughout 2018 and growth and a couple times before that, before I started doing this series. And I'm so excited about this interview because it's new. It's also, I want to say, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So other than it being your birthday, tell me what's awesome today.
What's awesome today is I just released my 5-day menopause journey post-holiday cleanse out into my email list. And I have already gotten a whole bunch of signups, better than I expected. I'm looking at more people, making this available to more people than I even thought I could. So I'm super excited about making that happen and helping somewhere north of 50 or 75 women get their 2019 off to a roaring start and feeling better about themselves and feeling better in their bodies and stopping dealing with so many weird symptoms of menopause.
That's so exciting. It's so awesome. And I remember because you've really started to owning doing this cleanse and be the person to put it together was a big moment for you, right?
It really was. It really was. I was actually considering working with somebody to put it together, and you convinced me. You kept asking questions and said, see, you know the answer to that. See, you know the answer to that. Just put it together and put it out there.
Yeah.
So it's out there, and it'll be available on my Facebook page and on my private page, my person page, whatever you call those things.
Yeah.
Within a week, and I'm excited about it. So if anyone who's listening is interested in it, I'm sure this will come up after that's already happened. But if you're interested in knowing more about why a cleanse and why menopause cleanse in particular, just get back to me and I'll tell you about when I'm going to do the next one.
I love it. And what I love even more is there's so many awesome things that I want to talk about. But I want to touch on this before we kind of move into 2019 and your birthday and all of that, is you've done there was a lot to put this together because there was a lot of different emails. There was a lot of what I'll call work, not hard work. I mean, maybe you think but there was a lot of things to do. And I feel like you've accomplished more in the last month. Like a lot. And so how does it feel to accomplish that amount of work versus maybe 2 years ago where you spun over just a couple of emails and now you just kind of got this stuff done?
I think working with you and the work that we have been doing on who my client is and what she needs to hear from me is really coming to fruition in that I don't spin and I don't question as much on the emails. I just write them. And then of course we talk about them, and that makes them even better, even tighter, even more focused on that. And that's been such an amazing piece of working with you, is this idea that I could be talking and writing to someone who gets my ideal client as much as I do and reminds me when I'm not getting her because I'm up in my own head and not in her heart.
Oh, I love that. In your head versus her heart. And that really is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. All right. So how are you different right now than you were at the beginning of 2018?
Uh, well, I think the change started back in October, but it started with you nearly firing me.
A year ago, October, right?
Yeah, a
Yeah.
year ago, October. And that was the point at which I had to decide how many voices I needed in my head to get this done, and realize that I needed two. I needed my own voice and I needed your voice. And that you would bring in my client for me, and that I would be able to have that dialogue between you and me and my ideal client, my paying client. And being able to do that was a huge change for me, because it, number one, made me stop running from place to place, chasing down something that I thought was somewhere else, that it wasn't, that nobody got it, nobody was able to help me do exactly what we've done over the last year. It's made it possible to get the words and the images and the feelings out onto paper and onto electrons and to send out into the world. And so this whole thing has allowed me to trust and to know that it's just a matter of time until it's done. There was never that trust before. There was never that feeling that I knew what had to be done and could do it. And now there is.
Yeah. I love that. Do you think that, how much of that do you think comes from only having two voices in your head? Because I think it's common. Everybody thinks more voices is gonna,
that somebody else has the answer.
mm-hmm.
And everybody out there is designed to try and tell you they have the answer.
Right.
So if you're listening to, if you allow them to talk to you, you're going to hear them saying, I have the answer. And they might.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have is bigger than that. It's a relationship. It's a long-term relationship that's allowing things to develop. I think as entrepreneurs, we buy into that idea that it's instantaneous. And as long as we're running from place to place, I don't think it can happen. When it happens, when you stop and dig into something.
Yes. And just, I want to make this crystal clear for all the entrepreneurs. And this applies to other life as well, because people do this even if they're not entrepreneurs. They do this with other coaches trying to change their life. They'll have 3 different money coaches, and I'll be like, that's the exact, like, you can't hear two people. That person, she's really good at what she does and she has a lot of success, but she says the opposite of what I do. And so you have to pick a track. And so when you say running, I think what you mean, and if not, I want to clarify, is like going from thing to thing, thinking that's going to be the fix, right?
Exactly.
Versus standing in one place. And what would you like, standing in one place and allowing yourself to be molded? Or how would you, I don't think that's how you would say it, but I wanted a little more for our listeners. What does it mean to stand in one place, and how does that help you as an entrepreneur or in life?
I don't think it's allowing myself to be molded. I think I honestly think I'm doing the work.
Yes.
I mean, yes.
You're
doing a lot of work too. But I think that when you stop and stand and take a position, you have to allow the voice to come to you and then filter it and use it. But it's consistent.
Mm-hmm.
It's consistent, and you're taking consistent action, and everything is in alignment with everything else. So when I go to say the law of attraction works this way for me, it's because I'm doing the same thing 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week, that I'm I'm getting in touch with my future self, that I'm listening to her, that I'm letting her guide me down the road of this is what has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than saying, okay, I'm going to do Abraham Hicks this week, and I'm going to do this person's coaching stuff this week, and I'm going to try and do all of it. I think you talk about it in Manifest 10,000 is the idea that you make this long list of everything you have to do. And of course, if you miss a check mark on any given day, then all of those coaches have a reason to say, that's why it's not working for you, because you missed making that check mark. And instead, what you've done is made it really easy. And you tell me when I go off track, that's because you haven't been checking in with your future self or something. Like sometimes we get there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like a zillion little check boxes on a zillion little lists. And I think that takes it from the realm of what, voodoo magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like Harry Potter world where Ron is, or one of them is trying to do the spell and he can't get it right and he blows the thing up and it's because he didn't say Wingardium Leviosa or whatever it is. It's swish and flick. But it's not that. It's living in that one solid framework that allows you to go from feeling like, oh, it's just because I didn't swish and flick, I flicked and swished, or whatever it is, that you can actually say, that's why it's getting better.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Getting better.
Right. I love that. Yes, that's how it's getting better. So, speaking of getting better, and I'm not saying this is the best one, or I don't know what your answer is going to be, but how does this birthday feel in comparison to others that you've had?
It's interesting because I got up at 2:00 last night and worked for 3 hours, which I had absolutely no intention of doing, nor was it really, there wasn't a requirement to do that. No. I had another way around it. I did need to have it kind of handled by this morning, but and then I got up relatively on time, a little late. And then I've been working all day, and there would be times in the past where I would have resented it. I would have said, I really want to go out and play today. It's my birthday. I should be able to. And there isn't any of that. There's a feeling that if I wanted to go out and play today, that's how I would have arranged my life for this week. And I would have.
Yeah. Right.
But what I really want to be doing today is creating the things that reach these women I want to help. Mm-hmm. And so today feels very purposeful and very centered. Mm-hmm. I've gotten a huge amount done today, and it's really nice. It's wonderful.
Yay. I love it. That's so awesome. So what are you most excited about in 2019?
I am excited because I think this is the year that all of this comes together, that all of the growth, all of the knowledge, all of the research, all of the programs and preparations I've done all come together, and I start really reaching the women that need my help. And one of the things that I've known all along is it's not that I am offering something that nobody wants. Mm-hmm. It's that I haven't been able to communicate to people, the people who want it, that it's here.
Yeah.
And that's been for any number of reasons. There have been reasons that I haven't been able to get that message out in the world. Everything from fear to hubris, maybe thinking I do know better than anybody else, and therefore, I'm telling you what you need. No, now I realize that it's a realization they have to come to, as well as me being in the right place in the right time, so that they do see that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And stopping being afraid of both not having it, not being enough for them on one side, and being too successful, too wildly successful on the other hand. And I've had all of that going on in my head. And I think this is the year that it all goes away, and it just is reaching out to people and having them come in and working with the ones that need my help and sending the others to a place where they can get the help they need,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't always me.
I love that. And I think that's a huge statement. I know that's a huge statement for you, right? Because you like everybody, or I think all coaches go through this. So it's like, why doesn't everybody on my list want to hire me?
And why would anybody want to hire anyone else?
Right. And that somehow means something, right? Yeah. And
it means that I'm not good enough for them. And that's not true.
It's not true. How freeing is knowing that?
Super freeing, because it means that if I go, there was a point at which if I went to a networking meeting and found out somebody was working with another personal trainer or another diet person or something, I would get a little bit put out and a little bit hurt by that, especially if they were friends. And so I felt like, oh, well, why didn't they come to me? They just must not. And that, especially with what I do, not everybody sees their issues as coming from menopause. And frankly, not every issue ever does come from menopause. Right. So it's allowed me to be in proximity to other people who aren't necessarily choosing my way, and knowing that, they're just choosing the right way for them.
I love that. Such a huge lesson as a coach. So what was the most surprising thing about 2018?
I think it was, I don't know, sometime this summer when you said, you've got to stop trying to work and not working. Because there were a lot of days where I would be sitting in front of the computer and not accomplishing anything. And you made me rethink how I was not working, and get up and go away from the computer, go outside and work in my garden, go out and take the dog for a walk, or drive someplace and go for a run, or whatever it was. You allowed that to be okay, which allowed me to have enough room in my life for my business. Because when I was looking like I was working 10 hours a day and not accomplishing anything, it felt like, well, what would happen if I actually had a full client base and a group program going on? I would just be too busy. I'd be overwhelmed. And yet now I could see that there's plenty of room in my day for that, because a lot of time was spent spinning my wheels and not working on the things I was really trying to work on.
I love that. I love that realization and how it's played out, right? Because now it's a lot, there is that space. There has to be space. It's the one thing I think most coaches don't get. If you don't leave that space, your client energetically, and I think we had this conversation, if you're too busy for me, I can't hire you, because I don't feel like I'm going to get taken care of, right?
Right.
If I'm your client trying to come into your world and maybe liking what you say, but if there's not a space for me, I'm not going to show up because I can't let myself sort of open up if I don't know I'm going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you've created that space. You also called 2018 like the year of relaxing and knowing it. So you talk more
Yeah.
about that?
So I grew up with a dad who was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He was a franchise owner for a particular business. And I grew up with the idea that it had to be hard. You had to work hard. You had to be out there. He could have been a tin man, because that was actually the industry was siding and windows and doors. And that wasn't his nature, but he worked 9 and 10-hour days. He worked on the weekends. He went on calls most evenings. He worked a lot of Saturdays selling what he had. And I think that for me, I internalized that as you have to be working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be after it all the time. And what I've realized in the last year is no, you have to have that opening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to open it up and say, there are people out there who need what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I just need to make the openings and allow them to know that I'm here for them.
Mm-hmm.
So relaxing into it, knowing that they're there, is really the big difference.
I love that. And how do you think that's going to support an amazing 2019?
I think it's already starting. I'm already allowing people to come in and see what I have with this cleanse. It's an opportunity to give them the best of what they can get out of 5 days, which since this is health coaching, not necessarily business coaching, it's hard to get everything done in 5 days. But I think it's going to give them a feeling for what it's like to take care of themselves. And so with that, I'm just relaxing into that. I'm letting them see what is so wonderful about creating a menopause survival plan, taking care of oneself and putting oneself first, even though that's not what we've been told for years and years and years as women.
Yeah, I love that. I had a great question, about knowing and opening for them. Oh, because even as recently as last week or the week before, you sort of even dropped into even more relaxing and knowing, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a moment you thought you were going to do the cleanse one way, and then there was going to be an add-on for the plan, and then they had to do all this other, and you went, no. That's too much, right? Like
it was too much for them. It was too much for me.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it was too much for them.
Mm-hmm.
It was too crazy. It was too feeling like they would have to go too far and I would be, and it obviously, one of the things that we talked about was how to fit it in around a weekend that I've got personal stuff going on.
Yes.
So it was this sense that, no, it's too much for me. It's too much for them. I need to do it a way that they can love it and I can love it.
And that was such huge growth in you, because when you started this, and when we started more business coaching, I'll call it, you were like, no, they have to do 100 things. I don't know if 100 is it, but there was always a list, right? They have to execute this or they're not going to get any results.
Right.
As you've stepped into your future self and as you've connected more with your ideal client and where they are, right? We can do those 100 things in the time that they work with you, but we have to figure out what can they do in 5 days. And so seeing you open to that was just amazing. And how did it feel to not have that push? Like, oh no, they have to do all this.
I still have to watch it. I just was realizing as we were talking
Yeah.
that there's something that I was about to do that was exactly that. It was like, oh, we can put that off until they come to the next piece. We can talk about that down the road. And I think part of it is because I always had to be the A student. I always had to be the one who did all the extra credit projects and all the, I would do all the reading ahead, and I knew it all, and I had to do it all in order to get where I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that's been really helpful, and this is going to sound weird, but it has been failing at, almost being fired as a coaching client, failing to be the person who took everything in and made the city on the hill out of it. I was always thinking that I would be the person who could take all this information, put it together, put it out there, and be the millionaire in 30 days. I was the person who was going to do that from this person's and that person's and that person's and on and on and on. And I won't say that I haven't gotten anything out of those programs. And especially out of writing the books, I got a huge amount out of writing the books. And just thinking about it, that was probably one of the first places I got to this thing of you can't do it all at once.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote I Just Want to Be Me Again, which is my first book, I had an outline that I brought to my first meeting with my editor for about a 400-page book.
Right.
Now, I've written over 400 pages in the 5 books, but they've been one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And each one is a big enough chunk to help the people who come to it, but not so big that it would have taken me years to write.
Right.
And so I think that this learning that I have to do it in their time as well as sufficient, but not overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to forget sometimes that my client is already overwhelmed because menopause.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because all these things that are happening to them that they have no idea why are happening.
Right.
And so it's important for you as a client to just take one piece, to just help them solve one thing instead of every single thing, so that they can then be open and ready for the next thing instead of get overwhelmed and quit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that.
So the cleanse is I just in my head just simplified it again.
I love it. How does that feel?
That feels really good. One of the pieces with a cleanse is that we talk about environmental and personal care detoxing as well. But in a 5-day cleanse, it's too much. We'll go into that in the extended program. If people want to continue to work with me, I can present all that. But for somebody to have to remake their house just to do a 5-day cleanse with me is not at all sensible. So the cleanse will stay with just what it needs.
I love it. That's awesome.
I'm excited.
I'm excited because I think people are going to, I always say this, that less is almost always more.
Just wait till you see one of my posts.
Awesome. So less, people are going to get, in theory, they're getting less from you, but they're actually going to get so much more because they're actually going to be able to go to the depth with you. They're going to be able to they're going to be able to handle what you give them and
Right.
do it and execute it and get the experience.
Yeah.
I love it. So, awesome. So you called 2019 the year of sufficiency. And so I love that. You thought I was maybe not going to love it, but I do love it. And so talk about that and talk about, yeah.
So one of the things I've learned about through this whole process is the make $1 million in 30 days is just, yeah, you can do it if you spend $1 million too.
Right. Right.
So what I've learned is this year I had a business that didn't support me completely.
Mm-hmm.
You
Started
know,
to at the end of the year, right? Started to do more.
It's doing more, and
Yeah.
and I'm not saying, I'm not complaining about that. I'm just saying that it has to build, and I learned this. I guess we actually haven't talked since I had my first retreat. My first VIP client come to Louisiana and spent the weekend with me. And I kept thinking, well, I need 4 or 5 people in order to do these retreats. And you said, no, just do it as a VIP weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought one of my wonderful clients in, and she and I had a magnificent time exploring a little bit of Southeast Louisiana, but exploring more deeply into her. And I felt really, really awesome about the whole weekend. But I learned that had I had 4 or 5 people, I would have been going crazy trying to deal with logistics that I didn't know were logistics because I'd never done it before.
Right.
And it would have not been the experience for the people who were here, nor me. And I probably would have ended the weekend in tears and saying, what am I going to do? Instead of saying, wow, that's so awesome. And this is what I need to do and remember for the next time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really awesome. The next one is going to be fabulous. And it's, whether it's 3 people or 1 person or 6 people, it doesn't matter. It'll be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I can build from there. So, question was about sufficiency, and I went in a totally different direction.
No, but I think you were talking about what
Yeah.
you've learned is that this go for $1 million, and I'll be clear, I have you guys go for $1 million 5 years out. And the reason I do that is so that we have that space, right?
Right.
But it's that 5, that's why I'm like, put it out there longer, because I think what you're trying to say is that you've learned you actually have to build. Like that $1 million tomorrow might kind of just make you want to crawl up in a hole and not come out, right? Because of everything that you now know. And it's not that, oh, the money wouldn't be fun. It's not the money that would be overwhelming, but in order to logistically do that and build a business that does that, you have to learn along the way.
So this year I see the business supporting me, my half of the world, which it is just beginning to come up to that. But I also see it as growing into sometime in late 2019, maybe early 2020, being able to allow my husband to think about retiring. And that's an awesome thing because we're in our 60s.
Mm-hmm.
We're not kids anymore. So having this business be able to support us no matter what happens in the rest of the country is really important. And it's super important to me to be able to, for him to say, I don't have to get on a ladder anymore. My husband does technical trade kind of work, and he has to get on ladders, and it scares the heck out of me because he's not always as steady as he once was. He's not as young as he once was, and he's getting tired.
Right? Yeah.
He's getting tired of doing it. So to be able to give him the gift of saying, retire if you want, or work half time if you want, and the rest of the time we can work from, New Hampshire,
Yeah. Right.
which is totally awesome.
That is totally awesome. And right before, you had said, 100K this year feels inevitable, not like a
Yep.
dream anymore. Talk about that. How?
So I see where it's coming from. I see how it's getting into my pocket.
Yes.
We've done the $1 million exercise several times,
Mm-hmm.
and I have no idea how $1 million gets into my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I can pay it out,
Uh-huh.
and I know that I have $1 million a year worth of value to
Mm-hmm.
people, but I have no idea how it's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
But with this program, with this cleanse and the program that follows on that and the program that follows on that, I can see the inevitability of that much income just by doing what I know how to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's the secret. Once you just do what it is and it's inevitable, the 100K is inevitable. Like all of a sudden you see, oh, I just keep doing this again. And it, without, sort of that forced, how am I going to double it? It just keeps getting bigger because it's that
Right.
inevitable, because it's that foundation that you've built.
Yeah.
And it's
that's where I
sustainable.
am right now.
I
That's
love
where
it.
I am right now. I know exactly what needs to go into the follow-on program. I know what needs to go into the cleanse. I know what needs to go into the 6-month coaching program and the retreats. And I could do them here, or I could do them in New Hampshire, or I could do them in Belize, or wherever. We've talked about all of those places as a
Mm-hmm.
rallying point for my retreats. And I think that it's quite possible to do any of that stuff. And I see it just building until it's 100,000, 120,000. And then by the time it gets there, I'll know what the next step is.
Yes. That's, I think, the key, right? Is not, I think always in the past, you were like, oh, yep, I'm making $1 million in 30 days. And so I'm going to go chase after it. I'm going to go do this program, but I can't figure it out, but I still want the $1 million in 30 days. And so it's this constant figuring out, how do I get there? Whereas what we have done is we started making you a $1 million coach 3 years ago. And making you believe that you could put on that retreat, that you could have those conversations with women, that we gave you all of this practice ahead that
Exactly.
is paving the path for 2019 to become inevitable, because you are that person.
Yeah. And what happens in 2020 and 21 and 22 and 23 is just whatever becomes inevitable this year.
Right. I love it. It's so awesome. Any final thoughts as we close out this interview for today?
I just want to say thanks, because it's inevitable, I guess, that we come up against ourselves in this process.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do, there's got to be something there that says, okay, it's okay to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay to stay that person. But it's so hard to find the words for this, but there's just a tremendous amount of gratitude that you stuck with it, that you didn't say you're fired and go away. And we're talking to people who maybe don't get that. Maybe they don't see that that's an important piece of this. And maybe you're still chasing this. If that's you, maybe you're still chasing the one right thing that'll make it all work. I know some of my clients are. And yet I can see where I still have to soft pedal this and say, okay, just let's let's move forward. Let's move forward. They're not ready to be fired yet.
Right.
Yes. They
Yeah.
haven't grown enough for that to happen. And I just want to say here at the beginning of 2019 that I'm glad you're going to be all on the journey with me.
Me too. I am so excited about it. I think that's a great time to just ask you to remind people how they can connect with you.
You can connect with me on my Facebook page, which is Menopause Guru, or you can find me at www.menopause.guru, or email me, my first name, JEANNE, at menopause.guru.
Awesome. You can find all of those links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much, Jeanne. I am so looking forward to your next interview to talk about how much awesomeness came out of this cleanse and just this whole open of 2019.
I think it's going to be fantastic. I can't wait.
I do too. Thank you. And thank you all for listening, and make sure to catch Jeanne's next interview.
I love helping people manifest money, because when you're learning to use the law of attraction, money is such a great tool. It gives such instant feedback. There's so many opportunities to see how the energy is flowing through you and where you might be getting tripped up or not allowing it to come in. So if you've had trouble manifesting in the past, you might want to use money as a way to learn how to use the law of attraction. Now, I have helped thousands of people manifest millions of dollars using my system Manifest 10K. And now I would love to invite you to join me complimentary and pay based on your success. You heard me right. You can join, get access to my very successful program, the Enchanted Circle, and most of all, my coaching for when you get stuck. And then you can pay me 10% of what you manifest after you're successful. If this sounds good to you, go to payafteryoumanifest.com to apply. That's payafteryoumanifest.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Law of Attraction Manifesting Success Stories show. To learn more about enrolling in the Enchanted Circle, go to cassieparks.com.